Hi folks, I'm Pete and welcome to my video log. I'm calling it Electrified, the vlog, or vlog, or I guess I won't know how to pronounce it because frankly, it's my first try. So one of the nice things about the world that we live in is you have this kind of a media that can touch as few or as many people as makes sense. I don't pretend to in any way know how all of it works, other than I know I'm talking to a phone and the phone is recording me, and then I'm going to upload from this phone to a YouTube channel. And wow, if you'd have told me that 20 years ago, not only would I have laughed, I'd have said, yeah, right. Particularly the video recording in 4K. Okay, don't even pretend to say that I would know the difference or be able to see the difference from whatever P to 4K, even though I'm told, oh yes, there's a big difference. Anyway, we're digressing on that one. But what I want to do with Electrified the vlog is I want to share some of the anecdotes, the stories, the things that as I've passed them along in my presentations, in my classes, call it what you'd like, people have found value. And I thought, okay, time to put them on paper. Actual paper. Okay. Not typey paper, actual paper. Sorry, that's just how it should be. So, as these things started to wind up on pages and pages of paper, I said, okay, it's time you start recording some of these. So here we go. Video log number 1, episode 1, the past. This will be a kind of a bit of a history lesson, woven in with some of today and some of how the past informs the current and the future. So I'm going to be referring to my notes. You're going to see me look down just because it's, winds its way through the day and you get to this point and it is pretty well wound out. But where I would like to begin is I would like to say, remember that our electrical world started in the 1890s, for the most part, okay? It hasn't changed much since then, and yet it has. Copper wire still remains the only and basically way in which we get electricity from point A to point B to point Z. That hasn't changed. For all of our cell phones and all of our battery-powered equipment, you still have to charge it, and you still have to have a way in which to do that. And that, to me, is wild. Think about it. It hasn't changed in all those years. Wiring practice hasn't changed all that much in the last 60 years. If you look at how a house is wired, you wind up using either Romex or BX, whatever the wiring type, but you have an electrical service panel and you have fed that service panel in the same way you did 60 years ago. Power came off a pole, came to the corner of the house, went down a pipe, wound up in the service panel. From that service panel, all the branch wiring comes out. The breakers are feeding particular load groups based on what they are. That hasn't changed. We've added in things like arc fault or ground fault for protective measures for, the user, the consumer. Apart from those, you're really talking about exactly the same practice back then as now. One of the nice things that we have done is that we have evolved a little bit in how a contractor will look at a project. In my day, what I would do is I would look on the construction side is I would look at an installation. Someone would come to me. They would say, "Here's what I'd like. Here's the work I'd like done," and I would take a peek at that, and I would see the number of openings that were going to be involved, and I would give them a bid based on the openings. What does that mean? Okay, if you're going to put a new light in a fresh space or add something to an existing space, but it's an add, not just a change of a fixture or something, you're going to cut a hole somewhere, opening, in either the ceiling or the wall. You're going to mount that fixture on it. You're then going to wire from that opening to a light switch or a power outlet or something, another opening, and then that all goes back to or feeds back to, if necessary, the panel, which would be a third opening. And you would charge a certain amount per opening. and that was a quick and dirty way to bid something. One of the nice things is it usually worked out pretty well. And as we look back at that, from a contracting perspective, you would say, okay, well, that's interesting, but we're much more granular now. We got to have things that connect to the internet. We have to have all of the data passing along as well. We have to be able to charge our devices out of our outlets, not just an outlet, and then we're going to put a charging block on it. These are all things. There is where there have been changes, but once again, it's still an opening in a wall with a receptacle box, with an outlet box, with a round box, with a 4-inch square box, and some kind of a ring. A device of some kind goes in it, and we draw electricity through the device. None of that has changed. Isn't that amazing? And I find it amazing. But one of the nice things about all of this is, besides like Alexa and all the things that you now connect on the digital side and have electrically engaged, you still have this ecosystem that you can look back on the history and know that it is a solid, kind of stayed and absolutely rock star level performing circumstance, because we've got lots of experience. Well, yes, you can, but you can't when you talk about experience. We're going to turn our page to how do we present and capitalize on a history that's that old when we're trying to move our world forward. What do we do about that? As with any kind of an event, we've got to learn from the past. So if we've learned what worked, what didn't, what should remain in play, how we build on it. So if you're talking about something, a great example would be when electricity was first brought into the cities, they were all put on the wiring was individual, a hot wire and a neutral wire. And each one of those was on a little spindle, looked like a little thread bobbin. And it's called knob and tube. Now, that knob and tube evolved when gas lines eventually were, instead of gas lights, now we wanted electrical lighting. Well, rather than rip all the piping out of the ceilings and walls and everything, you simply took the gas portion out and fed and threaded wiring through those same piping areas to the fixtures, and then you added a socket in the fixture. That was how all of it, particularly in the cities, that was the standard practice. And at that point, you moved from this knob and tube setup to insulated wiring that you could then pull through all of the existing gas lines. Now, that was pretty exciting because it took us the next step in our electrification. What did we learn from that? We learned that certain types of insulation did well when you pulled them through a pipe. Certain types did not. So several dozen, 100,000 fires later, there was a realization you had to do something more about insulation. So here is a learn from your history, build on that, come up with something better. And so we did. Our insulation of today is pretty robust and puts up with a lot, including being crushed under concrete, being nailed through as it's somebody's adding anything on the ceiling or otherwise. It's a pretty tough, robust formulary that we've arrived at and can be confident in, no matter what the environment in which it's being installed. So that's exciting. We learned from the past. On the manufacturing side, where I reside at this time, this challenge that we face is the balance of the cost of doing the things I just mentioned to you about, say, wiring, and the return for that effort. So I was making a wonderful wire that was used for knob and tube, and the insulation involved in that was a simple, basically nothing more than a cotton braid wrapped around a piece of wire. Now, we're going to pull that through a piece of pipe, and we need something more because that's not enough to keep to keep it from connecting or contacting the pipe itself. So we have to come up with a material that doesn't cost too much to price it out of existence, but still does the job to hopefully keep from burning the house down. This is something we face each and every day. And, you have to kind of come up overcome that kind of a thing, particularly when you want to stay your course, provide a product that you are proud of and performs as advertised, yet you're doing so where your existence can be supported by the net results. And that to us is one of the in every industry, obviously, preach to the choir or call it what you'd like, not trying to insult anyone's intelligence. But that is the balancing act. It would be great for us to, it's interesting, one of the things that has come up in the last few years are things like using 5-volt to run an entire installation. And there have been several large scale city installs done with low voltage in that fashion. The challenge is the cost to do so is borne primarily by a consumer who doesn't necessarily understand what you face when the installation is complete, what you're going to face as far as maintenance, any of the things involved in upscaling or updating. These are all the kinds of things that, while we're thrilled to move our world forward, we need to make some choices as to what does that cost in comparison to existing practice. And is it a moment of inflection, or is it a moment that we need to maybe slide into? It may absolutely be the answer downrange. Is it the answer for everyone in the moment? It may not be. But that's a judgment call. That's subjective, not objective. That's certainly something that I would encourage people to absolutely discuss and debate, look into, decide if it shows value, decide if mechanically it makes sense in what you're doing and how you're doing it. Nothing that we do now is going to necessarily surprise anyone. It's certainly not going to scare anyone. We're trying everything. We've got now a total industry that's been kind of flipped on its head. In my early days, everything that was built because we had a source of light, a lamp of some kind, and you had a fixture you had to build around it. Now, give me anything you want, and I can turn that into a light fixture. It's a crazy moment. But anyway, I guess my kind of final moment on this, and again, I'm going to try to keep these within 15 minutes or so, but my final kind of commentary would be that we've begun at a moment when the excitement was, oh my goodness, the thing glows, to a point now that we can make anything glow. And that is leaps and bounds over not that, far in history. So my excitement is that in our moment, we're going to come up with what comes next in the whiz-bang department, and it's going to be exciting. So at least for the moment, and for my initial video log, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention. I hope that there was something interesting in there. But again, I have an entire sheet of topics that will be coming down range, and they, in fact, will be more focused than my ramblings about history. And so, I hope I did Tesla and Edison proud, and I hope that all of you got something out of it. And as always, all for now.